Hello and welcome to ModSpot, the mod review and tutorial show. I'm BonBonB and you're very welcome. Now normally at the start of these shows I send you back to episode 1 to see the disclaimer as to why mods can possibly break your game. I don't need to today because today's mod will not break your game. In fact, quite the opposite, it may even fix your game. It might even save your game. What mod is it? It's the loading screen mod by Thale5. It has a whole host of hidden features, hidden bonuses that even if you don't want to play a modded game, this is the one mod that you really should subscribe to. I'm not joking, honestly, it's just an essential if you're playing the PC version of the game. So, what does it do and how do you get it? Well, let's start off with how you get it. I've included the link in the description below. That'll take you straight to the mods workshop page. Go across to there, click subscribe, then come over here, go into the content manager, and then find it under mods and enable it with the little blue button that is there. Then every time you load up a new game, or an old save, it will be an active mod, which is great. But what does it do and what are the benefits for you? Well, what it does is it uses the loading process more efficiently than the vanilla game. Let's pretend that I have subscribed to this asset off of the workshop. It's called House. It's a bungalow. It has it's growable, so it has 5 levels. Each one of these is 1 megabyte in size to load up. And then there's a standard house version of this same building. There's also a semi-detached version of this same building. And there's also one with a bungalow as well. As you can see, I'm using the same graphic for all. I'm oversimplifying this. Some of you won't need this, but some of you do like a nice visual to help you to understand what's going on. So what we have there are 20 megabytes of building. On top of that, there's another building called Small House that I found, which is made by a completely different creator, but it's a really nice building. I want that one as well. That's growable also, so that's another 5 megabytes. Now, these houses are a little bit plain, I think you can agree. So what we really want to do, we want to spruce them up, or the creator wanted to spruce them up, and he used a texture to do so. Again, oversimplifying, keeping it really simple. Each one of these textures, as they load into this house, is 1 megabyte. So we'll just load all of those in. It takes a bit of time to do. And also, just by chance, the small house, as well at the bottom, uses exactly the same texture. So we can load those in as well. There we go. So that's 50 megabytes of stuff that's just loaded into our game. And we've got a whole bunch of houses to be able to put into our city, which is great. Except, can you see how this could be a much more efficient system? That's right. If we only have to load in the texture once, that would save an awful lot of RAM and time. So that's what the loading screen mod does. Oversimplified again, but what it will do is when it loads in the house, it will go, right, house, and we need a texture for it. We don't have the texture, we load in the texture. And then house level 2, and we need the texture. Oh, we've got the texture, I'll just point to that texture. And level 3, we'll point to that texture, and so on. And that's it. That's basically the base of the loading screen mod. It is more complicated than that, but if we go in and have a look in the options menu, you will see. So yeah, what we've done there is we've saved ourselves. We have saved ourselves almost half of the RAM and probably half of the loading time as well, which is great. Go into options and you can see here we've got all the mods down the side here that I'm running, and if you highlight the mods, the loading screen mod in that menu, it loads up the options for the loading screen mod here. And first of all, the top one, the load enabled assets. Well, in the content manager, you know the content manager. If we go into assets, you can see I've got a lot of enabled assets. You can see I've got a lot of enabled assets. All right. So if I were to start a new game here, or load up a new game with that button there, that would load in every single asset I have enabled. It's kind of the base setting, really. And even if I'm not going to use Honey Tree, I've made that name up. Even if I'm not going to use Statue of Liberty, they are going to load in. And that takes time. And it eats up RAM. And it's all about RAM, this game. So by unclicking that, it won't load in all the enabled assets. In this case, it will just load in the used assets. The only downside is if you're playing the game and you suddenly realise you want to put in the Statue of Liberty, you haven't used it yet in the city, you'll have to load up the game from scratch and place it in with the load enabled assets in place. But then what you can do is you can save the game, click that off again, reload it up, and it'll save you a whole bunch of RAM. It's just it's a no-brainer for me. Load used assets, I can't see why you would want to uncheck that one, because if you are if you're going to uncheck that one and uncheck the top one as well, you're going to end up with a very plain looking city, like no assets in it whatsoever. The sharing textures, sharing materials and sharing meshes are all very obvious things. These will just do as I showed you earlier with the sharing of the brick texture. It's just going to save you a whole bunch of RAM, and again, while your game is loading, it's going to save you a whole bunch of time. The bottom part, 2 sections, you've got the prefab skipping down here. If there's any specific things that you want to skip, you would put them into this file here. Having said that, I would say that's for a more advanced gamer. It's not something that I've used personally, and but if you're more advanced and you know that you have prefabs you want to skip, that's the file to pop them into. And finally, this is the good one. This is a good one. When you load up a game, you'll see that it'll show you a progress bar as to how far you have loaded, and it'll show you any failed assets. Sometimes you'll be missing maybe a plant pot, something like that, from or there'll be just bits missing. Sometimes anything that's missing will be shown in the report in this directory. This opens up as a web page, so with the links directly. So if for example we are missing a plant pot or a tree or something like that from our load, it will appear here and it will be linked to, so you'll be one click away from being taken right to the correct page to subscribe to it. Anything that's completely missing off of the workshop will be showing up in red, and that's not something you'll be able to fix except by replacing it with a new asset instead. So it's all on a plate for you. It's really made very, very simple indeed. And I just cannot emphasize that this is the mod that you need. You may also be surprised the first time you use it how many assets or props that are actually missing from your load. When the first time you load it up, you also go, hang on a second, this was quicker, and why are all these things listed in orange? If it's listed in orange in the loading screen as it's showing you these items popping up, these things are fixable. The only things you need to worry about are anything that show up in red. Those things are not fixable, and basically you need to actually do something manual to replace them in your city. But I think you could work that one out. So anyways, that's it for the loading screen mod. An absolutely essential mod. It's a must-have. It's a must-have. Grab it, load it, use it today. Use it in your next build, and just have it constantly running. Just remember, if you're using the load used assets only, you won't be able to access any of your load enabled assets without saving your game, quitting to desktop, reopening the game, and then starting a new game with load enabled assets highlighted. That I've fallen foul of that a few times myself during WhatMap. Trust me, I am an idiot. Anyway, thanks for watching, for commenting, for liking, and for subscribing. Join me Monday to Saturday for WhatMap, where we try and find you the right map for your next city build. And we'll be doing another mod spot again next Sunday. Thanks for watching. I've been BonBonB, and you've been very, very welcome.